You can't chase the darkness with a bright, bright light, 'cause the sunshine burns you up when you get too high.
You're listening to RIFF Radio, a presentation of RIFF Magazine Online, where we bring you the latest artist interviews from the Bay Area and beyond. I'm Amelia Parreira, and in this week's edition, we hear from Canadian singer-songwriter Serena Ryder, who is set to release her 9th studio album, The Art of Falling Apart. Ryder has collaborated with initiatives like Bell Let's Talk and Unison Benevolent Fund, and she dedicates The Art of Falling Apart to her own journey toward mental wellness and sobriety. She talks about that and more just ahead on RIFF Radio. First of all, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk with me today. Before we get into your music, obviously we're in some unprecedented times with the coronavirus pandemic. What has life been like for you, and how have you been coping?
Yeah, I feel like it's been, a lot of waves of fear that has been pretty debilitating for most people, because we just don't know what the future holds, But I keep on kind of going back and forth in waves of worry, but then also realizing, one of the things that's always been true is that we've never really known what the future holds in general. So it's a lot of kind of meditating practice has really helped me out a lot, kind of just bringing me back to being in the moment instead of catastrophizing everything, because it really does, in a lot of ways, feel like the end of the world.
Now, your upcoming album, The Art of Falling Apart, you said paints a picture of your journey finding wellness during a time of mental health struggles. Tell us about what this album means to you in your own story, and how do you hope it speaks to others who may be experiencing the same struggles?
Well, for me, this album, I ended up writing it 10 songs in 10 days. I had just finished writing a mental wellness keynote speech that I was touring called The Art of Falling Apart, which in it I share my wellness journey, which is really not a linear journey. And something that I've learned in my past is that a lot of my struggles have led me to clarity if I don't try and kind of push down the uncomfortable feelings. And I've realized that sitting in uncomfortable feelings, if you're safe and you have that support, can lead to a lot of breakthroughs and transformations. And so that's what my album is about being able to feel safe enough to sit with uncomfortable moments, and realizing that I've realized that 100% of the time my symptoms are actually my greatest messengers, and they actually have a lot of wisdom in them. And it's very much like the metaphor of a crab outgrowing its shell. When it's very, very uncomfortable and it's getting too big for its skin, it actually has to go and hide and break its shell open. And when it's completely vulnerable to, sharks or other animals or whatever, but it goes and it hides until it grows back its shell. But each time it gets bigger. And just like like the butterfly, when it goes and has to completely fall apart in its cocoon, right? And I feel like as humans, we're very much like that, and we're constantly changing and we're constantly growing, but we find that growth. We can find that growth and that transformation through being uncomfortable, but sitting in those uncomfortable moments. Like if you were to stop that caterpillar midway through in its cocoon or try and help it get out, it's like it wouldn't transform. And that's very much how I feel about myself and my wellness journey. It's like the more I was corking my feelings, the more I was pushing them down, the bigger they got. And you can't cork a volcano. Eventually it's going to explode, and your life's going to fall apart in a different way. So for me, the art of falling apart really means being able to allow those uncomfortable moments and the tears to come when they need to come in the moment that they come, and instead of holding it together and trying to keep your shit together. And it's never a good scene if you hold it in too long.
Yeah, and you mentioned how you wrote this album in 10 days, which is something that really strikes me, how you wrote and recorded in just a 10-day span. Tell us about the inspiration and drive that pushed you during that time and the motivation that went into this process.
So I was really making this album for myself. I had decided before I made this record, I just released a record 3 years beforehand, or 2 years beforehand. And for me, I usually take like 3 or 4 years in between albums. So I was ready to kind of just take a little break after touring a bunch and stuff. But I had some sessions booked with my friends in Nashville. So one of my best friends, her name's Simon Wilcox, and she's amazing. And she has these writing partners, Gordy Sampson and Tog Salter, and they're a writing team called The Architects. And I went there, and with this idea of kind of making like a beautiful, soulful album, and writing for myself instead of thinking about writing for a big label or to get on the radio, things like that, because I've been touring for 20 years. I've been on and off major labels, things like that. And I was like, I want to make a record for myself. And because I was so comfortable, and like Simon's my best friend, one of my best friends, I was able to really just channel what I was actually feeling. And the whole album is based on my mental wellness speech. So each song lays out a different step of my mental wellness speech, The Art of Falling Apart. So when, like the first track is Day One, it's Candy, and that song is about allowing yourself to be vulnerable. The Day Two, track 2 is Waterfall, which is about the medicine that happens when you allow yourself to cry. Track 3 is Thinking About You, and it's about like how you can create when you've released so much, after you've released, like had a big cry, like that space that you have in order to daydream and like create. And then it goes like that. Like each song is like another step in my journey in that way. And I've based it around different stories in my life to show the examples.
Yeah, that actually leads into my next question. Your latest single, Better Now, how would you say that that song stands out from the rest of the tracks, and how does it reflect yourself and how you're better now, so to speak?
Right. So the whole vibe of the song is, the message is that in order to, get to the other side of the woods, you have to go through them. And better now, in essence, is like, it's not about being fixed or actually, like, quote unquote, being healed or better or anything. It's more about realizing that, being in your emotions as they come is very healing. And a big part of that song is about my decision to be sober. And I've been sober for like 2.5 years now. And how even just like a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine a day, or like I used to smoke cigarettes as well. It's like it pushes down, what you're feeling and self-medicates. And this song is about, that I'm choosing not to do that anymore, and I'm learning how to live in the uncomfortable moments when they come, and being able to treat myself better allows me to treat the people in my life better.
You're not only releasing this album that discusses mental health and wellness, but I noticed that you've also become an active part of the community to help others with their mental health. Tell us about the variety of organizations you've collaborated with and what drove you to get involved.
Well, my own journey drove me to get involved because one thing that I found is when I was struggling with really intense depression and things like that, or anxiety, that I felt really alone. And I feel like the biggest part of the journey is to not feel alone. Biggest part of the healing is to feel like you have a community. And so speaking out about these things is really important to me. And I started, I'm starting my own mental wellness foundation. And right now I've done a lot of different things with different people, but me and my manager started a mental health initiative through our label, which is Art House Music. And we have wellness programs that are free that we started at the beginning of COVID. And there's 4-week-long programs for different groups of people. There's some for LGBTQ plus two-spirited people. There's some just for Black, Indigenous, people of color. And there's some for all different kinds of communities to have a space to feel safe with a counselor and talk through different ways of finding mental wellness and having different tools. And they're the 4-week courses. And we've done, I think, like 8 or 9 of them so far since the beginning of the lockdowns and COVID and stuff. It's people want to check it out, they can go to arthousemusic.com, and then Art House is spelled ARTHAUS music.com, and there's links to those programs on there. But then also, I used to when I was traveling a lot, I do speeches and things like that, and go and do chats and talk to people about my personal, journey and path.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you about the Art of Wellness, which I thought was awesome that you put a spin on your own album title. Tell us about this program and what response have you gotten from those participating?
Yeah, so that's what I was just talking about. The Art of Wellness is the program. It's a 4-week program. So there's different counselors and different groups of people from different places that come from different places. And the response has been amazing. It's been really great because it's building community in a time where that is just such a precious, precious thing to be involved in, and a safe space for people to come and learn different tools to feel, nourished, and give them tools to build on their own inner wisdom in order to find mental wellness.
And personally, how does it make you feel to know that you're helping other people feel like they're not alone?
It feels like it's a part of what I need to be doing in this world right now, because it's where I'm coming from, my own struggles in my life have, and the way that I've figured out how to nourish myself and find a path towards healing. I don't ever want to keep those tools a secret when they can be a resource for other people just by me talking about where I've come from. So, it's not like it makes me feel, it makes me feel excited and, makes me feel like I'm in the right place doing the right thing right now, which is really, really amazing. But I also know that there's, it's such a long path. There's such a long way to go for a lot of people. So it is what it is. And I'm doing what I can do.
Looks so perfect from the outside in, but you could tear down those walls, they were paper thin. If the weight's too